When group dynamics are out of your control, it just really helps to have a friend who gets it, to just have somebody who knows what's going through your head, who can just put their hand on your shoulder and be like, you good? You want to go outside for a second? You need a glass of water? So you have to know what helps you, what sets you off, and also what doesn't help. We're like vibing today.
Yeah, we're slightly vibing.
Which is what vibing is all about. If it's too much of a vibe, it's like matchy. That's not really what we do. Look at, we got like a yellow accent, a little green. It's a vibe.
Yep.
Welcome to NeuroSpicy Soul Care, where we help you to turn down the volume on the worst symptoms that you have in your ADHD, high masking autism life, or something similar to it. And help you to embrace the way that God made your brain so that you can live into your God-given purpose and the things that you feel the most called to do for the glory of God. I'm your host, Carla Padilla.
I'm your co-host, Frank Padilla.
Yes. We love him. I love this man.
Oh, there she goes. Okay.
We love him.
Yeah, we're going.
So, interesting podcast news. I attended a Barbara O'Neill health lecture series last week. For those of you who don't know, Barbara O'Neill is an international natural health renegade.
That's a lot.
She's,
that says a lot.
Yes, she's
you love her.
Yes,
you love her very
she
much.
is a gangster. She loves the Lord, and she is out here all over the world doing clinics and just helping people heal from chronic conditions, like establish healthier habits that just lead to a higher quality of life. And amazing news, she might actually appear on this podcast via the internet. I'm hoping that sometime in the next couple of months, maybe we'll get Barbara on the podcast and she can talk to us about how natural remedies and lifestyle change can lead to some better outcomes day to day with ADHD and autism. So we're super excited about that. Really, really thankful that this is a direction that God is offering to us as hosts and guides in this area. But yeah, super excited. And I'm on a hair wash day, so my hair looks nice for a change.
Wow.
Too. Yeah.
I'm on a hair wash day too.
You got a hair wash too.
I just woke up like this.
Love you.
Love you too.
So today we are gonna be talking about if we have any Survivor fans out there.
Ooh, Survivor.
I don't watch a lot of like high pressure reality TV because it's just too much. It's too much. So I don't watch Survivor, but something developed that a friend of mine brought to my attention about the storyline involving Joe and Eva. You may have heard of them. Well, first let's set up the story.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you remember anything about what we studied last week?
Yes. So Joe and Eva were on season 48 of Survivor. And at one point in the game, Eva confides to Joe that she has autism and that she has a propensity for a autistic episode, which she just hyperventilates. She can get like really tense. It seems like she's having some sort of panic attack.
We kind of talked about this in the other episodes, how like sometimes meltdowns can feel like panic attacks because it's kind of that feeling of spiraling out of control. But she kind of describes it to Joe pretty early on. Like after they get to the island, she kind of singles him out and like sees him as a trustworthy person for one reason or another and ends up telling him just about that.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of a big deal, right? The whole architecture of Survivor and other games like that are to like pit people against each other in like social games, right? And part of the gamesmanship generally is not to show your hand to anybody, but she does. And it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And the bigger deal is actually that he verbally agrees to like look out for her. And that really puts him at a vulnerability in the game as well. So he says that like, if my daughter was in a game like this, I'd want somebody to do that for her.
Yeah.
Which made me think that he had a special needs daughter, but I don't think so. I think he, just being a dad, he just kind of understood that was a cool thing to do, and he felt like moved to do it, and you could see it kind of like click in his in his heart, and he was like, you know what, he made the commitment. He said,
Yeah, he was all in.
Even if it takes him out of the game. So fast forward to a few episodes later, after she's confided this in him, there is an immunity challenge going on. It's very high pressure, and her team is in a good place to finish and get out of having to eliminate somebody from their teams. But she's really struggling with this. You have to it was like a door, and you had to rock the door back and forth to move this ball along without it falling off the side.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd get a little further each time and it would fall down, and she was getting so frustrated. You could just see it building up on her. And
Yeah, she's like gritting her teeth.
she looked like the top of her head was gonna explode.
Yeah.
And so if you watch it, you can watch it on YouTube. They have the clip. But you can just see that she's really, really frustrated. She manages to finish the challenge with no detriment to her team. She finishes in time before the last team does, and just starts to scream and cry, and you could just see she's just in total anguish, having gotten out of that situation, but now she is so overstimulated, it's all completely overwhelming her. See two things happen. You see her team gathering around her, trying to comfort her, like, you did great, you did it, you did it, see, we knew you could do it. And they're patting her and they're crowding her, and she is not calming down. She is not reassured by any of this stuff. She just
Yeah, she's like screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not happy sounding, not relief, just just completely spiraling. Yeah. And you see, so they're cutting back and forth between her and Joe, and Joe's looking at her, and you can tell he's really concerned, and he's kind of ready to jump to the rescue, but they're not allowed to cross tribal lines, I guess. So that's just a rule. But the host of the show kind of caught the dynamic, and just in real time decided to make the decision to say hey Joe, do you want to go and give her a hug? And he's like, yes. And so he goes over and hugs her, and she's like, squeeze my hand, squeeze my hand. So it was what they had talked about episodes earlier, however long that is. And so, he squeezes her hands, he tells her she's in a safe place, he tells her to breathe, he hugs her. He's like, do you want another round? You okay? Yeah. So he just kind of helps her to ground in a way that she knows is helpful to her. And then she's able to kind of come back down. She thanks him. It's a very emotional moment. She's crying, everybody's crying, blah, 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 blah. So obviously the producers have been milking this now for every episode since, probably. And it was a great moment for autism awareness because she was more of a level 1 type. This girl is an athlete. She is working on her doctorate in college, very athletic, has obviously been at least in the middle of the pack as a competitor.
Well, I don't know if I jumped to she's level 1, but she's functioning as a level 1 now.
Right.
But it's important to note that that she was diagnosed really early on.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at some point, I think she explains that when she was assessed as a child, they had said the best outcome would be for her to marry somebody autistic as well. I don't
Right.
know what that means, right? But
Yeah, I think what it was they never thought that she would be able to function independently. And, I think she's gone away to college, or at least I'm not sure if she lives out of the home, but
I think she does. Yeah, if I remember the post
yeah.
thing.
Well, I mean, she lived on an island in Survivor, so I'm guessing she probably probably could have made it in a dorm room.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those dorm rooms get pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she did also make a note that her parents said has done all kinds of therapies and treatments, and her parents have really put in the work to help give her the biggest advantage that she could have. And so she's, very high achieving. You tell she's quite aware of herself.
Yeah, that was really what struck me about her. Just how very acutely aware she was of herself, her limitations, and her propensities.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And even when you say limitations, it's just there comes a point where there's a threshold for stress and input. So not necessarily her limitations as into what she could achieve, but just that, on occasion in the right circumstances that there could be a meltdown, or she would call it an episode. So Yeah. That's an interesting thing about autistic culture in general is that everybody chooses different words for everything.
Mhm.
And some people hate certain words for certain things, and some people are like perfectly fine with them, which I think is like such an autistic
I
thing
was like,
anyway. Like,
yeah.
sounds like autistic people,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
with autism, or
Right.
autistics, or whatever the words, people with autistic traits. It's everybody prefers a different set of lingo, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just one of those things that in the wild you got to be prepared for. It's just a thing. But anyway, so she called them episodes, and um
Dude.
yeah, and the other cool thing was I don't know if it was like in another interview that he did or on the actual show, but he mentioned that she had told me about these things, but I had never seen them. I just saw her like performing well as a competitor. And so it was almost like this was his first time actually seeing that happen. So it was like just because he knew that she had autism and that she dealt with these situations, it was still the first time seeing it. So this tells us that like Eva told Joe this not to make him like her support dog, but for an actual extenuating circumstance that could really like cause a mental and possibly even a physical health like tailspin for her.
Mm.
So while it was a vulnerability, it's like, people keep saying like, oh, well, if you send Joe home, then Eva's vulnerable because, nobody else is there to like protect her. There's still people talking about like how that could be manipulated for the game. But really, we're talking about it because I think it has some great real world applications for us.
Real world applications?
Real world
How?
applications. Well, we've been talking about, becoming self-aware and knowing what sets you off and knowing, what kind of reduces your levels of burnout or overstimulation. And as we gain self-awareness, we can actually bring other people into that so that they can support us. But I want to talk about where Eva was at in order to gain herself. We'll call it an ally, but
Sure.
just like a support person or just like a friend who gets it. You know what I mean?
A friend who gets
Just
it.
a friend who
Just a
gets it.
friend who gets it. I'm gonna go with that language.
Okay. So we're looking for
Yeah.
a friend who gets it, right?
Yeah.
So where Eva had to be, what it was about Joe that kind of telegraphed to her that he was the right person for the
Yes.
job.
Hmm.
And then what was Joe's response and
Mm.
what made him a good ally or was what continues to make him a good friend who gets it. I know. Now there's
Okay.
words are so loaded.
Aren't they?
So
Yeah.
loaded.
I think of ally and I think of like I don't know, like playing Risk or any
Yeah, the
like
Allied
yeah,
powers
or
like in
like
World War
any
II.
or I don't know. It's kind of a different thing now, I guess, but
Yeah.
friend who gets it. I like it.
Just a friend who gets it. So we're gonna help you find a Joe in the wild.
Oh, like a Pokemon.
Ooh, like we don't want to capture him.
No?
But that's the thing is that we have to distinguish this is
What?
not somebody to clean up your messes. This is not somebody to like emotionally crutch on. Like you can't function.
Codependent?
Yes, we don't want to
You don't
become
want
a
to be
codependent.
codependent
Right. We're like
on
if you
your
if you get if you get
friend.
put on a shift, at work without this person, you
Mhm.
just don't know what to do anymore. It can't be
Yeah, it can't be that.
yeah, but just having
A friend that gets it.
getting a friend that gets it. And it may be in one or two areas of your life where you need it the most.
All right, so where do we start? Where do we start this journey?
So, where do we start? So, let's talk about Eva
Sure.
first. We've already kind of talked about how she's had her diagnosis for a long time. All right, so Eva's 24 and she got her autism diagnosis very young. So that means in coupling with the fact that like her parents been watching her, observing her, reflecting back to her probably what's going on. She's been, I don't know what kind of therapy modalities she's, experienced, but quite a few probably.
Yeah.
So she's learned a lot about herself over the years in a lot of different ways. And now as a young adult, she is aware enough of the types of things that set her off, how she starts to feel before she starts to have a meltdown or an episode, and then what helps her to come back down. So how somebody can follow up with you after a meltdown if they see it happen or if you let them know about it.
So I know for myself, I just don't like big crowds myself. I don't like them. I don't like to be in them. I have learned that in social situations like that, every once in a while, I'll just need to go to the bathroom and sit in a stall
Mm-hmm.
for like 5 minutes,
Hmm.
and then I'm usually good to go to do more social stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it mileage varies with every coping mechanism, and it may be a good place for you to have a friend who gets it.
So this could be a spouse, this could be a friend, this could be a coworker, somebody that you attend classes with.
Mm.
We've talked about, just checking in with a friend when you're starting to feel burnout or whatever. So this could go in any of these situations. Typically, if you are neurodivergent, we kind of tend to run in packs. So if there's somebody that you talk to on a regular basis and it's like real easy to talk to them and
Yeah,
you don't have to alter yourself too much, you're just like, you just feel so comfortable with this person. It's possible they are also neurodivergent.
yeah.
So those people might be good candidates for you to talk about your overstimulation with. Just good to try to locate those people. It seems what Eva noticed in Joe seemed like he was just a very um, steady presence. The first thing he talked about on the island apparently was his family and his kids. It seemed like that was a
Yeah.
big priority for him. And so to her, that telegraphed that he was a safe person with good values and that he
Yeah.
would be likely to give, you know, good feedback.
Sounds
So,
like a green flag to me.
yeah, green flag.
Green flag. What
Hmm.
are green flags?
Green flags. We're looking for people who are good listeners and, respect boundaries, kind people. People who aren't just nice around people who are in authority, but treat people kind of equitably, regardless
Mm.
of what they can offer to that person.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and just doesn't make a big deal about doing extra, you know what I mean? Just like a steady vibe, basically.
Yeah. So what are your flags for somebody who
My
could be a friend that gets it?
my green flags.
Mhm.
I'd say all my closest friends at this point, I've probably had a conversation with them. I'll kind of give like an intro type of thing. Like, if you notice me getting a little twitchy, like sometimes I'm just overstimulated, or like, if it's loud, or if there's a lot of things moving around, or if,
Mhm.
whatever. And I'll kind of give it like a very short thing that has nothing to do with the word autism. It'll just be like, in this scenario, you might notice me behaving this way. And typically it's me trying to communicate that it's not something personal. Like, if I stop acting like friendly and happy, like you might notice that 5 minutes later I'm fine again. Like that might have been what has happened. So sometimes if someone has already experienced me being dysregulated somehow, I can get very like rabbly all of a sudden, where like I get rabble, rabble, rabble. Yes, yeah. So where I get kind of irritable and a little snippy, and I'll like complain about noise, and maybe I'll like walk off into another room before I pop off, and then I need to let it chill a little bit, and then I'll come back into the situation, maybe say, hey, this noise is really bothering me. Do you mind if we turn this music down? Whatever. But I might not have the wherewithal to explain the whole thing. So if they go through that with me and they're pretty chill about it, sometimes I will bring it up after the fact and say, like, hey, I know, I was acting a little odd or I was a little grumpy at that spot. This is what was happening.
It doesn't sound like uh, letting in a friend who gets it. That sounds like explaining yourself
Hmm.
after episode. I don't know. Is that what's so different about that, you know?
Good question.
Because I feel like,
Honestly, I think what Eva did was really brave
yeah.
because but it also shows that this is a skill that she's
Mm.
developed, being able to tell people about her autism and how she struggles, because she doesn't look like she struggles on the surface, right? So like I, even at this point, tend to be more reactive about finding a friend who gets it. Like, where I know I have safe people, but I think the conversations have been slower going for me. I've felt it out slowly in terms of how comfortable people are with the topic of, autism.
So we're talking about green flags here. We're bringing it back, and I think it's very difficult to have a system
Hmm.
to find a person who gets it.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be tailored to what neurospicy situation you have.
Yeah.
So it can look like a lot of different things. It can look like you observing people and their behaviors and discerning that. It may look different for other folks because many folks on the spectrum may not be very well equipped to really figure out if people are being on the up and up or not. There are subtle social cues that neurotypicals can pick up and discern who is trustworthy and who's not a lot faster than many divergent people can. And I think that can make it pretty difficult. I mean, I'm thinking about full on the whole entire spectrum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Pushback on that in some regards. I'm going to say some people will and some people won't
Mhm.
because, especially like I'm asking girlies, sometimes their special interest becomes social patterns.
Mhm.
And so, some people have like such good instant like gut instincts that, they don't even have to like actually think
Mhm.
about it. They just like have a knowing.
Yeah.
So like but I'm not saying that that's not a thing because obviously like
Mhm.
it is a thing for some people, but it's
Yeah.
not going to be for all people.
Well, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's at least for me and other men that I have talked to that are open about their diagnosis. It is it's really difficult to discern people's actions as a whole and validate them.
Hmm.
And yeah, so
So what happens if you're not sure? Like if you have hard time discerning people's intentions, what might be a green flag for you?
I don't know. I'm pretty open with telling people out front like
Hmm.
what is going on with me.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily feel so much like I have to play the social game and like hide the thing I have. But rather say like, hey, this is what I've got. If I don't get what joke you told me, I probably wasn't looking at your face,
Hmm.
and I couldn't tell what you were doing, you know?
Do you find you're able to do that better with your barbering clients or with people at like church, or what areas of your life do you find it's easiest to do that in?
I don't find it very difficult to tell anybody in a sort of any sort of situation.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's like if it comes up, it comes up. I don't know. My social network's not that huge, but I know I have people who I can rely on and who love me. And, I don't know, I never feel like there are people out there to hurt me. That's that's me. That's how I operate. Um, but I definitely see people who are susceptible to a lot of social maladies, right? Bad things happening.
Hmm.
It just takes a lot of time to develop like good strategies over a lifetime to find the people that can help you in certain situations. And again, like we said earlier, there are varying tiers of person to help, right? Like you are my person that knows, and you are my help, um, biblically and in my social life and in my diagnosis. But you are so much closer into my intimate circle. You're the closest person to me in my intimate circle, that you're always there to help me, right?
Hmm.
But I guess it becomes harder and harder to discern the intentions of people the further they're away from that center circle of like yourself, right, and your relationship with the closest people that you have.
Hmm.
And at least for me, right, I can talk to you about people kind of on the periphery,
Hmm.
and then you kind of help me understand maybe their motivations a little better. And maybe that might be a strategy for people too, to figure out people at workplaces or this or that, or my clients, right? You've never met them,
Right.
right? But like know them and you can kind of discern the type of people they are from the type of conversations I have with them,
Right.
right? And I think that has been my strategy actually to figure out who I can like trust in the chair, so to speak, at my barbershop. And I guess that is the strategy I've been using. Yeah.
So, okay, so that strategy being kind of like verbally processing conversations in order to make heads or tails of like a conclusion that you're trying to draw.
Yeah, 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 with people who you already know that are safe in,
Right.
in the closest part of your circle, right? So you can use kind of the closer part of the circle to kind of help you, I guess, push that out a
Mhm.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that's kind of a mechanism I'm
Yeah.
thinking about using that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, so who are your friends that you would ask for help?
Um,
Who's a friend who gets it for you?
so I have friends at work
Mm-hmm.
that would be able to help me
Mm-hmm.
there, that work with me, neighbors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a bad experience, social experience with somebody at my chair, I can kind of rely on them to kind of be there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my anchoring is verbal processing. You know this, and it's just different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I know for you, a little bit of your anchoring is like physical touch, right? So you'll have me like literally just like flop on you, right? Or like hug you and stuff like that.
There are different levels, right? Because there's those dysregulated where like you're just like, I don't want to hear any more noise. And then there's dysregulated when you're laughing maniacally all day long. It's like when you're in the laughing maniacally all day long, that's like on your way to like needing a nap for a couple of days. And that's when I want to be crushed. I want like to be run over by a steamroller and just feel pressure on my body.
Interesting. Okay.
But usually when I'm around my friends, if I'm like in a crowd or something, what is going to happen that's going to set me off is multiple sources of noise and a lot of things moving around.
Hmm.
Um, so for example, one time I played music at this great little local event and there was a DJ playing and there was also live music. So while we were doing the sound check for the live music, the DJ was playing while I was trying to sound check. So I'm trying to like gauge whether I'm actually hearing the room right because when I'm playing, the DJ shouldn't be playing, but it's playing now. And also, it was probably one of the first times that I had played out. So it felt like a big deal, even though it was a small thing, but it was like with a lot of friends and I wanted to do a good job. And it was the worst meltdown I've ever had in public. So I did that sound check and my kids were running around. The youngest was going around sharing essential oils, letting them smell a bottle of lavender, and was just like winning hearts all over the place. One was touching pottery at a local vendor's thing very respectfully. She did a great job, but just monitoring that. And then another one who was, kind of walking around, coming back and forth, asking me questions like, what can I do? I'm bored. I want to go. Ugh. And so I'm trying to do all these things and I'm trying to hear my music and I'm hearing this very loud DJ music. I got done and I was just like, I gotta get out of here. And I left the like little sanctuary auditorium area and I had like cut across the parking lot and I just absolutely just started sobbing like uncontrollably. Mark came down and he was there and he was like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? I was like, I'm just so like, it was so loud. And like, I don't know, like I didn't really even know what was going on with me at that point. I can't even remember, but I was a mess. And I knew that I got overstimulated. I knew that noise set me off because I was just starting to kind of get on my feet from my chronic illness stuff. And so I knew this was a thing. I wasn't relating it to autism yet, but he was there. He was concerned. He asked what was wrong. I was like, I just feel like my brains are going to fall out and I have to go play music and I got to get over this. And my kids are over there. And I was just like, will you pray for me? And thank God, like I knew he was a believer. So it was just like, we stopped. and he prayed for me and he gave me a hug and I went back across the parking lot and I like struggled through the rest of the day. I actually like got a migraine after that because I had eaten something out of the ordinary. So it was like just a perfect storm of disaster. It was awful. But
Mark was a Joe.
yes, Mark was my
Mark
Joe
was a
that
Joe
day,
that
but he
day.
just kind of caught me in the right place at the right time. Um, but I didn't have language for like what was happening besides like I was upset. I was like almost angry, right? Like it was so loud. I don't know why the DJs play. So I'm probably not sounding. I probably wasn't making much sense when I was telling why I was so upset. And and when you don't know where it's coming from, like you start saying things like, I know it doesn't make sense. But like when you know that you have an autistic brain, it makes a lot of sense. So it becomes kind of a different conversation. And that's why I think self-awareness is such a huge piece of this. It's very hard to ask people to support you when you don't know how to be supported. Um, so I'm not saying you can't talk to people about it in advance, but it's okay to talk about it in terms of like when it's really loud, sometimes I freak out. Like you could talk about it in a very basic way because I think you're saying you're very comfortable saying right up front, like if it comes up that you have autism. I tend to hang back until I get a read on how somebody might feel about that. So, okay, here's what I do. I like silently listen for neurodivergent traits in somebody's kids or in them. And if I know they have traits, I know they've probably.
You love playing detective, don't you?
I'm
You
just a
love
game
it.
player from way back.
You are
Well,
that
but it's
competitive game player.
no, but it's not that. It's
Hmm.
a protective game.
Oh,
Protective detective.
oh boy.
LOL. But yeah, so basically I try to piece together whether they might be neurodivergent or not,
Hmm.
and can usually tell pretty quickly.
Wait, I mean, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What are you scared of by being more?
I hate the face that people make. I hate
Oh.
it. That's like so a lot of the times when I like let them know like yeah, like I'm diagnosed with like, low support needs autism. Um, it doesn't first of all, it doesn't make sense to people because, I'm not carrying a train in my hand and I'm not flapping my hands. It's just like because really like anybody who hasn't been through this process just literally doesn't know. Like people don't even know that level 1 autism is what Asperger's used to be. As of 2013, if you were diagnosed before 2013, you were diagnosed with Asperger's. But we don't use that term anymore. We've discussed it on the last podcast.
Because he was a nuts.
So no, it's level 1, it's low support needs autism. Um so most people don't know that ADHD is also considered kind of like part of that same spectrum. It's like
Yeah.
because 80% of people with um high masking autism. So, high masking autism, some people call it high functioning autism. I don't really prefer that term because that kind of trivializes the internal struggle of it
Super
all.
doing well autism.
Super. Nobody can tell I have. It's like I can't believe it's not butter. Nobody can tell I have
Yeah, I
autism.
love that. I love that so much.
Uh, and then uh, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, 80% of squirrel.
All right.
80% of people who have level 1 autism have ADHD.
Mhm.
So it's highly overlapping. And when you hear a lot of ADHD people talk about emotional dysregulation and all that kind of stuff, once emotional dysregulation and sensory issues are incorporated,
Mhm.
you're heading towards autism really quickly.
Mm.
Um, and it's just helpful to know that because, ADHD, everybody's like, oh, you need to be more organized. And it's like, no, like, you need to eat good, you need to exercise, you need to go to
Have
sleep.
systems.
Yeah, but not like you got you got to have like very stretchy systems. Yeah. We're going to talk a lot about not systems, anti-systems.
And that's a system.
I know. So
Mhm.
anarchy is a type of government.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. But yeah, people have weird. again, words are loaded, right? The word autism is super loaded for so many people. So I think, like, in the next 20 years, it'll get easier to have this conversation, right? Because Gen Z is going to be exploding the code here pretty soon, letting everybody know about it. So, um,
And
yeah, but Explode the Code, they're great phonics books. You should use them for your homeschool
okay,
kids.
I was ready for the spiel. I knew it was coming. It's like
Anyway,
that's great. So
yeah,
yeah,
so because words are loaded and because facial expressions are loaded and sometimes I just don't want to deal with that. And if I think enough people like if I have enough support knitted into the scenario where I am, I will like just be like my capacity is reached and I don't need to tell anybody else. So that's another thing. Like so I would like our next episode to be about unmasking and there's some people who you're going to feel safer around and you're going to let more of it out. And then sometimes it saves you energy to keep the mask on a little bit around certain people so that you don't have to have the tiresome conversation.
you know my favorite step about unmasking is
Hmm.
figuring out that you have been masking.
Yeah, right. That's mind blowing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the right
So
person.
it looks like, at least for you, this is what I'm observing,
Hmm.
is that there's a hyper avoidance or an unwanting to get into
Uh-huh.
hyper avoidance of judgment. Yeah.
So, well, but here's the thing. If you're looking for a friend who gets it, the goal is to make less work for you as an autistic person, not more work, right? You want this person to kind of, be shoulder to shoulder with you and say, cool, like, great, like, I'm happy to support you. To try to convince somebody that you're like not lying, you know what I mean? That's the opposite of that. Like, honestly, that's enough to have to go run to your friend who gets it sometimes.
Yeah. And you know what? I think there's uh there's just a lot of trial and error. Something like this.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And, some people, once you have the conversation with them, they are a lot more understanding. And I think it just depends on your bandwidth. And I think the longer I live with this, like I'm still only really, what, like not even a year and a half into my official diagnosis.
Official
Wah-da-da-da.
diagnosis.
Um, yeah, and especially, doing this educational advocacy work, whatever you want to call it, I don't know.
This sweet pod.
So, doing a lot of hand motions.
But I think this is an uncomfortable thing though, letting
Mhm.
people in on it.
Yeah.
And it shows how just like strong Eva was just for doing that.
Yeah, like I
Right.
have mad
You're
respect
like
for it
that is super crazy.
because she basically had to go out on a limb and be like, I'm going to kind of compromise my game. I have to trust that this person is like gonna believe me because I'm not showing outward stereotypical signs of what people know as autism. So she doesn't know going into it how educated he may or may not be. Maybe she detected some neurodivergent traits in him. I don't know. Like I don't think she would have come out and said that on television, but you never know what the vibe was that like tipped her off. But it's still like, there's a risk involved there. And really most of my people it's like I hemmed them in reverse. I run in circles where we talk about neurodiversity a lot naturally because it's either like homeschool moms with little spicy children and they're figuring themselves out.
That's gonna be
Little
little
spicy
spicy
children
children. It's gonna be. Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and creatives. I run with musicians and
Hmm.
artists, and we're just kind of naturally a little more self aware because that's kind of part of our creative process.
Sounds like a lot of cardio.
Cardio?
Yeah, you're running with these artists.
I've completely thrown off my train of thought. You're lucky you're cute.
Your conversations naturally, yeah, go into this because of the people that you hang out with.
Yes, they do. Part of my unmasking was realizing that I was in a lot of relationships where I wasn't really feeling like I could be myself, like all of myself. I could be part of myself, I
Ooh.
could be part of myself real good, but I couldn't be all of myself at ease. And my friends now who I choose to be around, I can be all of myself at ease with.
Your friends are
So
pretty rad. I like your friends.
yes, and I had to realize like what is a friend? You know what I mean? And like
A question.
right. Right,
A
exactly.
question.
Not just to people not just to people that I
Not
do
just the
a
people you
thing
do a thing
that I
with.
do a things with or people that believe the same thing as
Yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but you know, it, and it's not to say that I haven't had like people that met that description in the past, but the point is now that like I really first of all, I actually know who I am in full because I've had time to unmask and not like judge myself for doing autistic things.
You're doing your own life.
Yeah, for doing life the way I
Ugh.
want to. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that just takes time.
Yeah.
So, but let's say let's say you start attending a new school in the fall
Yeah.
and let's say you got yourself in a spot
Mhm,
or let's say you were in like a mock trial and
mhm,
then you started to have a meltdown.
mhm.
Um, would you be a person to have like a conversation very early on or would you just like explain it to somebody in the moment or would you just leave and then come back and act like everything was normal?
You know what? Here's a wrinkle into autism. Some autistic folks suffer from being too good at performative arts, and I think,
Masking?
yeah, yeah,
Being
I
masked
think in
professionally?
that regard, you've seen me in like pretty high stress when I'm like high stress in front of people, like when in front of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't show any emotion. But then like as soon as I'm like somewhere else, it's like
Different scenario.
yeah, I completely blow up. I would probably put on the best performative mask in front of everybody and then come home and cry to you. I'm being dead serious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
Yeah.
the most healthy thing, but I feel like that I feel like I could find at least one safe person
Yeah.
in a school where they teach rules
And everyone has a strong sense of
and everybody
justice.
has a strong sense of justice and everybody performed really well at school,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
tests,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. So I guess
This is learning for
yeah,
me. This was very learning for
yeah.
me.
Very it
Yeah,
was very learning.
very learning. This is mucho very learning
Hmm.
for me.
How much you're learning.
Yeah. You gotta get some sort of
Yeah.
like
So I guess
flames behind us at that point.
so this is a helpful conversation for let's say like a work environment where
Mhm.
maybe you don't have like maybe if you work in retail or something, like where there's
Ooh,
just like a
yeah.
lot of people and you're not always making a lot of like very personal connections. And then maybe if you go on like an extended trip or you move into a new place with new roommates, you definitely want to probably have a roommate who kind of gets the picture for what's going on with you. Um,
Or if you're on 40 on season 48 of Survivor.
yes. Or
Yeah.
season 49 for that
Could be.
matter. Yeah.
Hey, I can't believe that there had been 48 seasons of Survivor to
Isn't
begin
it?
with. So it's good to find your people. I'm going to go find my people when I'm at school.
Talk real quick about
I feel like that's going to be something that's going to be
yeah.
my mission.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about red flags. Um,
Gasp.
people who gossip,
No.
don't let them in on your stuff. Anybody who's making like, dismissive jokes about, other people's health or, you just things like that. Like, don't act like they're going to be different towards you. Like, they're probably not.
Yeah, the old two-faced person.
Yeah, just people
Yeah.
who act one way and then act another way.
Yes.
Something Eva's teammates did was they were like, you're fine, just keep going, don't worry about it.
Ooh.
You're fine. Let me tell you, for an autistic child who grows up and then is an autistic adult, is told you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, don't worry about it, just keep going. you are telling a person to ignore their needs. You're asking somebody to gaslight themselves. So if you tell somebody, like, I have this, this thing, let's say you have a meltdown or an episode and you come back and they go, oh, see, you're fine. You're fine. That is dismissive.
But what if I come in and I'm just like, oh, you fine.
I'm gonna fight you today. I'm gonna fight you. Then then they just want to flirt with you and they shouldn't be your person either. You shouldn't trust them until they put a ring on it. And then they could be your person.
Uh,
Uh,
bring
um,
some levity to this,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are scenarios where you might be uncomfortable just in a general setting, but I also want to talk about just support people in general.
Mm.
So, especially if you have children who are high masking, and this could go kind of into level two also. I think more especially level two. So level one, you might notice like carrying around safety objects, or they always want to have a certain jacket. They always want to have a certain backpack. They always want there's like
Comfort
something.
shows,
Yes, there.
comfort, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm talking like out of the house, right? Because we're talking like not in our inner circle, right? When we go out into our outer circle, there are certain things that make us feel supported. Those could be like if I'm going somewhere I really don't want to go or that I'm nervous about, I always wear like baggy jeans and I wear like one of my Adidas Batwing sweatshirts that I love. For some kids, it's like they have to have a certain toy or they have their basket packed with objects. And then some kids have an animal or a stuffed animal. And then for some kids, it's actually, or some adults, it's actually a person, right? So, our youngest, her support needs are a little bit higher. She's a solid two.
Yeah.
Um, and what I've learned over probably like the last 6 months, I've realized that I am her support person. Where when I cannot be somewhere with her and she has to be in an unfamiliar environment, it can lead to a meltdown really quickly. So she was invited to a birthday party recently, and it was a drop-off birthday party, and I was gonna stay with her, but then we got invited to go play at a nearby park. So I was like, okay, I'll take the other two kids to go play for a little while and we'll come back. And, so we were like, what, a third of a mile away or something like that. And so she was all excited, like ready to go. Oh, I'm gonna be a big girl, like, whatever. She's 7. And I dropped her off and I drove around the corner and I got a phone call like 45 seconds later. Oh, she's really upset and I think she wants you. She's just kind of sitting on the couch and not playing and she seems kind of upset. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I'll give her a few more minutes and like, she was sad. She did not move off the couch. And so I went back and I supported her and the kids were able to play at the park and there was another mom there and we just kind of switched up the plan a little bit and she was able to say like, I just don't want to be alone. And after talking to her a little bit longer, it was, she needs somebody there who she knows understands her because group dynamics are really troublesome for her. She voiced these really interesting things that night about how she just wishes when people played in groups that it would just be like one person with one person and then another person with another person. So she basically was suggesting that when people play in groups, they should break up into pairs, and that should be how they play. And so it was, interesting to have to explain how people play differently when, when people are all together. Sometimes they like doing things all together because you're not always in a group. She was like, well, yeah, but like, I don't always like what they play, or like their games are too loud, or their games are too busy. Like I just they confuse me, or I don't like those games. And she said, I just wish I could control that. I was like, girl, man, she just said it. And, when group dynamics are out of your control, it just really helps to have a friend who gets it, to just have somebody who knows what's going through your head, who can just put their hand on your shoulder and be like, "You good?" Or just be like, "Hey, like, you want to go outside for a second? Do you need a glass of water? Do you need, so you have to know what helps you, what sets you off, and also what doesn't help is important because again, Eva's teammates were crowding her, patting her on the head, like getting in her face, like celebrating with her. And it was very apparent they were not perceiving the fact that she was in distress fast enough to alter their behavior.
Yeah.
Um, which, again, like if you don't know, you don't know. So it's no shade on those people, but like that's why it was so helpful for Eva to have that person who she knew what she needed. And shout out to the host of the show
His face.
for kind of seeing that opportunity and writing a human moment for television that I'm sure will be exploited into perpetuity. But so let's recap. So
Yeah.
we've talked about Joe and Eva's dynamic.
Yeah.
We've
Need
talked
for
about
support.
some potential green flags for who might, be your candidate. So if they're neurodivergent or they just vibe well with you, if they're a steady, nice person, like it's worth a shot.
Worth a shot.
But yeah, support people are really helpful. No, if you know that about yourself, then you might be more proactive about it. Some people just need a certain thing. It's just a matter of knowing.
And you know what? I think the effort into trying to find that person who gets it at whatever level that you need that person to be is that you will find out more about yourself. It's another mechanism for introspection, for you to kind of look at yourself and go, okay, wait, is this an autistic behavior? Is this something that happens a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Then what are the triggers and this and that? But in the conversations that you have with people who are safe and who do get it, you might find out more things about yourself to protect yourself in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a huge benefit.
Yeah, I think that backs up your green flag too. Is like once you start telling somebody about it, if they're asking you questions about it to get you more information, that's a
If they're
great sign that
genuinely
they're
curious about
right.
it.
Genuine curiosity,
Mhm.
absolutely. Not
Not,
nosy Nelly
no,
curious.
nosy Nelly.
I'm sure there's some nice Nellies out there. Could you
Um,
imagine after like Nellie Olson showed up on television on Little House on the Prairie, like who wanted to name their kid Nellie? No shade to any Nellies out there. Like I said,
Furtado.
yeah. So think about who might be the Joes in your life. Who I'm sure there's people popping into your head as we've been talking about this.
Sure. You should make contact with these people or make a point to make contact with these people.
Or text them if you're not a phone call person.
Oh,
And then also think about it's okay to ask for support without saying the word autism either. Like, because maybe your reaction is more like at this point it's related to something that you feel is like PTSD or like OCD or like something, you know what I
you
mean?
may not have a
Again,
diagnosis in your hand.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's just like there are just tendencies that, certain people just understand the language for. And again, words are very loaded, so you got to kind of know who you're talking to. I don't know, it's kind of hard. Like for me, I'm always reading the other person real hard. Like
Yeah.
I think as I grow into this, I'm sure I'll be able to be more direct, but this is just where I'm at right now. Like I feel good about the circles that I have. I feel good about the way I'm able to talk about things, but
All right, we're back to it. All right, we're
yeah, but to be able to say just like, hey, like when it gets really loud, sometimes it's too much for me and I just need to step outside. Or like when this person talks to me this way, it really sets me off.
Mm,
Would you mind helping me to understand what he's saying or she's saying so that I
mhm.
don't blow it out of proportion? Because sometimes I worry a lot about my communications with this person. Something to bear in mind. Neurotypical people tend to communicate for smoothness as opposed to clarity. So they're looking to vend out information, have it be like, okay, case closed. Now your job is to go do it. So, but as a neurodivergent person, we like more complete information sets. And because of literal thinking, sometimes we don't fully perceive the meaning of what is said on the first try. So let's say you try to ask the person who vends the information for more information, but they tend to have a bad response. Maybe you're able to see somebody you work with shoulder to shoulder and look at them and say, hey, could I just check in with you about what he said to make sure, or she said, just to make sure that I understand what the goal is, to be able to do it that way. That can also be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, do you need to let somebody know who is actually in charge, like a manager, assistant manager?
The escalation.
Yeah, just so that
Yeah, you have to protect yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. Don't.
But that's the thing is sometimes it's like the survivor, right? Sometimes it could actually make you more vulnerable depending on the person. So understand that it's a very dancey thing, but just start with the safest person. Doesn't have to be necessarily the person that you think would help you the most, but it's just somebody who can just shed a little light in other directions and just help you clear your path to reduce overstimulation in the first place. And then also to just be able to identify when you might need some support or a break or
A check-in.
yeah, a check-in. Exactly.
Simple. How's it going?
Yep.
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 Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the internet is done with our shenanigans.
All right. So thank you for joining us today. Thanks for being part of this community. I hope this is helpful. I think we are having fun.
I'm having too much fun.
Maybe.
But the important part is that for our community, that there are Joes out there, that they can be found.
Yes. And Joettes.
And Joettes. Would there be no Jones?
Jolene's.
It's important to find someone
Josephine's.
who gets it because they can be a vital resource when you are out on a limb in places that you don't have people who are closer to you.
Don't suffer in silence.
Be brave. Be brave. Thank you for joining us today.
Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and all the places. If you need some neurodivergent functional health coaching with a splash of Jesus.
What?
So whether it's organizational, whether you're having chronic health issues, or whether you just don't know where to start with helping yourself with a neurospicy brain, book a call. I do a free intro, and I'll be happy to walk this out with you and help you turn down the fire.
And embrace the spice.
For the glory of God. See you guys next week.